Okay, good.
Yeah.
I've started
Uh,
the record.
okay, perfect. Thanks, Vikram.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next thing is that these laws which are laid down by the BNC not only stipulate minimum size requirements for a space to be considered something, like for example, a kitchen can only be called a kitchen if it has a minimum width or a minimum surface area, like a surface area, but they also stipulate heights sometimes. For auditoriums, you need certain heights. For a habitable space, you need certain height. Now, as we go ahead in the lecture, you all will see how these things affect designs and what are the considerations. Just one last point I want to mention is that you all might recognize a lot of these concepts because in Bombay that's all pretty much most architects talk about when designing a building. And the challenge that comes to us is how to design a building that's aesthetically pleasing, functional, uh, while also managing all these
Same
things.
time being approved.
Yeah,
Same
and at the
time it
same
has to
time
be.
being approved. Correct, absolutely right, Rajesh. Many times you can design heaven on earth on paper, but the minute it goes for approval, it gets shot down. So I'm going to hand it over to Raj now, and I'll also be chiming in as points come up. So yeah.
So okay, so basically we see a lot of buildings in the city. Guys, you can hear me, right? Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, Raj, you're audible.
Okay. Okay. So we in our city we've come across buildings having various height restrictions, and buildings could be 24 meters, could be 32 meters in height, could be 70 meters. There are high rises which go beyond 70 meters up to 180, 120, more than 200 meters also. So each of this building have a certain requirement when it comes to providing open spaces and providing open spaces from the point of view of fire. Okay, like a 32-meter height building may need open spaces which are not sufficient enough for a building which is more than 70 meters high, more than 120 meters high. So you guys know what is the definition of a high rise from the point of view of the DCR, that is Development Control Regulation of Mumbai. Can anyone talk about that? Like, what are the different height restrictions, or what is the definition of high rise? Hello.
We know of airport restrictions, airport
Yeah.
height
So
restrictions.
so yeah. So the heights of buildings are being restricted in multiple zones. One is due to the airport. Other is due to the heritage site which is nearby, like doing a construction project near a fort. Okay, near Sion Fort will restrict your height. They do not allow you to go beyond a particular height. If you see the recent construction project of the Crawford Market, near the Crawford Market, they have a height restriction simply because of the height of the commissioner office. Okay, they do not allow you to go beyond the height of that building. So these are some kind of height restrictions. A high-rise building is anything which is beyond 32 meters up to 70 meters, and definitely above 70 meters is a high-rise structure. Uh, for a building up to 70 meters, you need one staircase, two lifts, and beyond 70 meters, you need at least two lifts, at least two staircases of 2 meters wide, which will come across. So this project is actually a low story, a 32-meter height structure, where if you see the kind of open spaces provided, like this is the front open space. We have an existing road, and you need to provide a compulsory front open space of 4.5 meters. If you follow the regulation, let's talk about the front setback that we have to provide from the plot boundary. In these cases, there are two: the city and the suburbs. You know, this the extent of the city is up till Sion and till Matunga and Sion, yeah, towards the central. And on the western also, it's the same limit. Mahim is the limit for the city. So here, we since the city is very crowded, they have some relaxations in terms of residential building, open spaces in the front, which comes to around
Sorry,
3
Raj,
meters.
just one thing, guys, for all those who are confused, the city is what the original seven islands of Bombay were, largely speaking. Any development that happened after that is considered as suburban land. Sorry, Raj,
Yeah,
for that.
the land beyond Mahim is totally suburbs. So the kind of open spaces need to be provided vary from city and suburbs. So the rest elsewhere you have to provide at least 4.5 meter open space in your front. So you have open space requirement for residential separate and for commercial and industrial. So now what are the open spaces? How are they calculated? So you see that there's a structure, there's a building height up to 32 meters. There's another building from 32 to 70 meters, from 70 to 120 and more than 120-meter height structure. Are we clear till now or anything that you're confused about? Hello?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, okay. Yes, I have. You able to see the screen or there's some?
We can see the screen. It's just
Okay.
not. Yeah, yeah, it's full screen.
So you see that there are various requirements for open spaces for a plot which is less than 1,000 square meter and for plots which are more than 1,000 square meters. So the minimum kind of open spaces are stipulated here, but they follow a particular uh, calculation that is height by 5 for your light and ventilation. So if a building is having a height of 32 meters and you have to provide a minimum H by 5 kind of open space, so that is 32 by 5 is 6.4 is your requirement in that cases. And for a 70-meter structure, you have to provide at least 14 meters as per H by 5 calculation, but you have maximum of 12 meters is the relaxation that they have with the government has given. And it changes for a building which is more than 70 meters and more than 120 meters. So coming back to this, if you see, this is a 32-story structure and the open spaces that are required are far less as compared to a 70-story structure. This is a building in suburbs, so I have to provide a 4.5 meter clear open space and the side open spaces are 3.6 meters. You see, even the rear open spaces are in the range of 3.6 to 4.02 meters. So these are the kind of open spaces that we provide for a 32-story structure.
Just one point, Raj,
The
just want to
reason,
add on. If you just zoom to the front of the project now, Raj, guys, as you all can see, the 4.5 meters open space requirement is basically from the column to the compound wall. If you see, there's a building line above that is allowed after a certain, like your ground floor, you have to leave 4.5 meters clear. उसके ऊपर you're allowed a certain cantilever or a certain amount of building to come into that space. So let there not be a confusion that that 4.5 meters has to run throughout. Again, this might sound a little technical. In fact, and from the previous table also that Raj shared, but we want you to just understand it right now. Don't try to like overthink it, because these things will become clearer as we go ahead in this course. Because we'll be making you all go through a working example about how to implement these guidelines. and that can
Also,
become blocked. Sorry, Raj, continue.
these kind of cantilevers are allowed subject to the approval from the commissioners. So not always that it is allowed.
Yeah. But I just don't want them to be
Uh,
confused that why is that
yeah,
line there?
right. So see, this kind of open spaces are always provided from your column lines. Another thing, when you go in a high-rise building, which is up to 70 meters or more than 70 meters, you need to provide these things. You need to provide multiple staircases when it comes to having running distance of more than 22 meters. In any building, you see that up to 70 meters you have the staircase requirement is at least 1.5 meter. Consider a staircase or a corridor, you have to maintain a 1.5 meter passage and a staircase. But as soon as you go above 70 meters, like the projects that you all are working on, if you all see that those passages and staircase width will definitely be more than 2 meters. And the number of staircases, number of lifts provided are much more than what you would see in a regular building of a 22 story building. So you see this that residential buildings, general building up to 70 meter 1.5, and for building above 70 meter it is 2 meters. So each category has been defined, like for education is this, and for institutional buildings it varies. So this is one of our high-rise project. Here, if you see, you can clearly see how many lifts have been provided, what are the number of staircases which are provided. You need for any high-rise structure, you need at least two number of staircases of 2 meter width, minimum 2 meter width. You see this, this is a 2 meter clear passage. Here also you have a 2 meter clear passage. And out of these 6 lifts, you need to have at least 2 lifts, which are compulsory fire lifts. Because during fire evacuation, we have these 2 lifts, all the other electric lines are being cut off, and only the electricity is supplied to the 2 fire lifts. And that too, they are supplied not through your main line, but through your standby DG sets or through an alternate source, which are connected, which has dedicated connection to the 2 fire lifts. So during evacuation, the firemen can use those 2 fire lifts. These are the 2 fire lifts, which they can use for evacuation. And the reason why we have a 2 meter wide staircase is that more number of people stay in this building, which is a high rise building. So for them to reach to the immediate refuge floor, uh, they use the staircase. Ideally, during fire, no lifts are allowed to be used. Shay, you want to add anything to this? Or Vikram, if they want to add?
No. I mean, you've covered pretty much this. The main points. I just want to point out to all the students here that while this might seem again like you have to do this, you have to do that. Please keep in mind that these guidelines have been made keeping in mind or like to make the building as safe as possible. Okay, and also in like you will come across, I know that I'm going a bit off track here, but in your future you might come across people who will try to change the system or try to work this system in order to for their own design benefit or whatever. I'm not going to get too much into that, but please understand that these systems are made to keep the safety of the user uh, in mind and to deal with it in the most optimal manner, which is why many a times if you see buildings which have come up in, like, I'm sure you must have read about it last year, there were a lot of fires in buildings. But if you actually go to see it, these fires escalated because there were a lot of code violations which want which kind of were there. So please keep that in mind when you all also go ahead designing buildings. Be a bit sensitive about these things, and yeah, that's it for me. As far as
These are standard specifications, and you can modify them only to an extent which is acceptable. So basically now what I'll just skip this for the time being, and uh, if you see that high-rise buildings have sometimes they have podiums, some may not. Okay, so these are the kind of open spaces that we need to provide and which are compulsory. So any building which is going beyond 32 meters need to have at least 6 meters of clear open space at the ground level throughout the sky, throughout the building. That is from your building line to the plot boundary on one side of your plot. So coming back, I'll just show you in reference to the plan previous one. If supposedly this was a building which is more than 32 meters, say about 70 meters height, I need to provide, other than the 13.40-meter wide existing road, I need to provide at least one side perpendicular to the road, which has to be clear 6 meters from the building line and not the column. The reason for having a 6 meter clear open space is for the fire engine to access within the plot during a fire. And this
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I mean, I'm glad Raj mentioned this. The 6 meter open space is given around the building in case of emergencies. Emergency vehicles, whether they are ambulances, fire trucks, etc., get a full circuit around the building. They can move around the building freely to attend to the emergency or wherever the fire is taking place. And which is why, I mean, you might wonder then why is the front side given less space? It's because the authority assumes that the road is also usable, right? So the vehicle can park on the road while dealing with the emergency for this side.
So at least by providing access on two sides, they can also cater to the other two sides of the building as well. And if you see, the refuge areas are always provided on the building side which is facing the road or to the 6 meter clear open spaces. Now, when it comes to while you are providing a podium, you need to maintain at least 6 meters from your podium line. It's not necessary that you have a building which is 9 meters away, but you have to maintain a 6 meter clear open space when you do not have when the fire engine do not have empty access on the podium. And whereas when compared to this diagram, the fire engine has access to the topmost podium. At that time, you can maintain a distance of 1.5 meters from your compound wall. This is allowed is because the fire engine has direct and close access to the building. This is about a 70-meter structure, but as soon as you go above 70 meters, anything above that, up to 120 meters, okay, you need to have this 6 meter clear open space have to be minimum 9 meters then. So in this case, it has to be 9. Here also, when I'm having a podium, I have to maintain this as 9 meters. I cannot keep this as 6 and then additional 3 meters. That is not acceptable for the fire. So when talking about this running distance, the travel distance of 22.5 and 30 meters, I'll show you with reference to this diagram here. If you see these corridors, they are huge corridors. There is this one staircase, two lifts. So the travel distance is always calculated from the last flat to the staircase. So for that, I have to maintain the running distance like a person running from this particular flat number 14 to the staircase should be able to reach within 11.25 meters. The person should not be running more than 11.25 meters. And that 22.5 meters is the distance from this particular staircase to another staircase in case if it is provided. But in this case, you can always see that the distance is always less than 11.25 from any flat. You see the distance from 12, 14 or 13, the distance is less than 11.25 meters. Whereas in commercial building, the travel distance can increase up to 30 meters. And from any unit, it has to be less than 15 meters. Now, coming back to the fire requirement of refuge areas, um, up to 70 meters, you have to provide refuge area on every seventh floor. So first would be on the seventh floor, thereafter on the 14th, and then 21st. And similarly, it keeps on multiplying by 7. When we sit with your exercise with the exercise which you all have completed in the last semester, and when we work on those drawings, we will go a little bit more in detail about the fire requirements, about the kind of refuge area to be provided. Also, any building which is above 70 meters, you will have to provide a fire chute. It is a compulsory requirement. You have all your dimensions, minimum dimension requirements, and you guys must be knowing what is the reason of providing a fire escape chute. Can anyone say? Have you guys seen a fire chute before? Hello.
Yeah, we've heard of it.
So what is the use of it?
Raj,
Why do
Raj,
you?
we have done this
Yeah.
last
Acha.
fire safety and thing. It's a part and parcel
Okay.
of their third year portion.
Subs.
But I doubt whether they've
Okay.
seen it because no case studies were done because of pandemic. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, and what further than that, what we have is what Shreya was initially talking about, the minimum room sizes requirement. So this is what it is that to have a kitchen, you need to have minimum dimension of 2.1 meters. So you have for classrooms, we have minimum 38 square meter classroom shall be provided with one dimension of at least 5.5 meters minimum. Again, the heights required in a habitable space. You cannot provide a habitable area with less than 2.75 meters clear height. So these are the kind of requirements defined in the regulations. In any building, these are the kind of rooms which are to be provided. You have a society office, there are meter rooms, service utility areas, refuse chute, garbage chute. So these are the requirements of the part of the building. So when you design a building or when you are uh, rather submitting it for the approval, so these are the building parts which needs to be looked at from the regulation point of view, whether they meet your design requirement or do you need to modify your design to suit the DC regulations. Uh, we won't talk about the parking at the moment. We will take it in the later stage. Shrey, you want to add something? And Vikram?
I think we're good for now, but I just want to okay, yeah. So just one point is that guys, see this on. I don't know if you all can get access to it online. I will share with you the. I'm sure you all must have it
Okay.
already, but the DCR rule book in PDF format. It's released by the government only for you all. I know this all seems very dry, and that how do you remember all these things? It is a question of practice and just general awareness. The main thing I wanted to say is that see these are the rules which are applicable to Bombay, Mumbai specifically. This thing changes from here to Thana. You have separate rules. From Thana to, and you take this across Maharashtra or this any parts of the world. Each local municipality has their own local rules. I want you all to the main takeaway from this is that okay, you all these figures have been thrown at you all, but know that there's a handbook which you always have to keep referring to. That's like your Bible when it comes to designing, at least in the initial stages. Once you're a practiced architect, these things become second nature. Uh, but I want you to is that know a few things. Firstly, be more aware. Hence, going henceforth, if you look at any building, if you look at any project or structure, this should just come like it's like another dimension or another lens added in reading the building. Look at the open spaces around it. How much space have they given? And then obviously, depending on your study, you can follow it up. That is this the bare minimum or have they given extra? In certain parts of the world, they have much more stricter this. Like your building height is really curtailed because they say that that we do not want, like we want more open space. For example, Paris, like no structure can be above uh, above the Eiffel Tower. That is one of their requirements, which is something it's not in figures, but it's just there. So each place has its own this, and which is why even when you all now travel around the world as architects, start keeping these things in mind as well. That's all I wanted to add from here. These figures you all can refer to any handbook. Each municipality will give their own version of it, and it's a matter of just reading it and incorporating it.
And guys, you know what? These are not something which is made by an individual. These are all referred back to the National Building Code. Okay, they are just modified to some extent to suit to the city, but otherwise you will find all these requirements in the National Building Code as well.
Yeah. Raj is absolutely right. And as you know, the National Building Code, it's a group of experts. It's not like some random one person has done this as per his or her convenience. It's a group of experts who sat across. There are detailed study which lead them to these decisions. Uh, so yeah. So just thank you, Raj, for that. I hope it's clear to you all, at least to some level, the requirements as far as fire safety and open space go. And I think
This will
Vikram.
be further clarified. This will be further clarified when you start working in your second assignment, that is on your working drawings that you produced last semester.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. Like I had said, this is just once I know it sounds confusing now, but once you just sit down and start implementing it now, it'll just come automatically. So I guess we are done with the presentation. I think Vikram, you wanted to just talk with the class and the faculty.
Is Vikram there?
Vikram, are you there?
Yeah, he's there, but he's mute. I'll call him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
I'm
just do
calling
that.
Vikram.
Okay, fine. We'll do that.
Hello.
There he is.
Yeah, hi, Vikram.
Hi. I was doing some other calls.
Mm.
So yeah. So the lecture is done, and we were. This was about Shirish. You want to take it up or? This was about some of the announcements, or there are some ideas which we were discussing.
No, I I had a suggestion to all the students and actually to all of us. See, they are going out and finding case studies which are and relying highly on what is available online in the open source kind of a way, whatever is accessible. So a few years back, we did an exercise in the second year where we had asked the students to build models of around about 40 buildings. And at that time, I remember some of the groups, we asked them to reach out to the firms. And in two cases, the firms actually responded. So Herman Hertzberger's firm and Moshe Sabdi's firm actually responded to the students. And both the firms actually shared many sort of drawings and other things which were not readily available on the or not published and available on the this thing. They shared some of their internal drawings and things like that to help the students construct the models. It might not be a bad idea for each student group to actually write to the firms, and be able to, and it's a, I know that many a times it's a shot in the dark, okay, but you will be surprised at how many that you'll be surprised even if 3 or 4 firms respond, okay, they will be adding substantially to your kind of knowledge that you have. That's one. The second is that very often we think that uh, we are I mean, we think that firms have a lot of some firms do, they have protection laws, or rather that they can't share certain things, but there are many firms who are actually willing to talk to students and send stuff to students in order to sort of get them to understand better. So it might not be a bad idea for each group to actually reach out to the firms. Yeah, is all I'm saying. And you can draft the letter. Sorry, Shrey, you were saying something.
No, no, I just wanted to, I agree with you because in my group of 8 groups, one group has done that and the firm has responded. And they've
Great.
given a lot of drawings which they weren't getting anywhere before.
Yeah,
So I
I
think that's a
think
good idea as well.
I think we should all reach out to the firms and see. Also, when you reach out to them, you explain them what the exercise is. Okay, if there is a brief which is written about the exercise, I'm sure Vikram has that. You can send that brief also, and you can also send that what you have found and what you are actually doing, meaning a sample of the model that you're trying to build and things like that. Uh, you will be pleasantly surprised. Yeah. That's my suggestion. I don't know what the students have to say about that. Yeah.
There are two things to this additions. Number one is our work doesn't stop. This is just means if it works, it works. But even if it doesn't work, the exercise continues. But it is important to make it useful for the exercise. You start the communication as early as possible. Okay. So even if you expect a response in a week or two, that still gives you substantial amount of time to incorporate all those additional information into your in your study. And if it doesn't, you still are on your way. So there's no stoppage because the information is not there. Okay, that is one. Second is the manner in which you articulate the studio and draft that letter. That will be very important, and it also establishes a way of communicating with professional firms. Okay, and you have already done that with your professional practice, and all. You have already done all the communication for getting these internships and all. So you're already aware of it. You have done a bit of that exercise of how firms need to be communicated. So we trust that you will be able to draft. But nevertheless, if you want to, it would be good idea to run it through us, through the faculty, which is assigned, just so that there are no some major kind of shortfalls, or we can always add some, give our comments so that it can be better presented. Yeah. Any comments or any thoughts on this from the students?
Just one thing. See, and guys, also for the students, this is from my group. Ishan, Tanvi, and Sneha reached out to the firm, and also maybe for those who are unsure, maybe the students can also just talk amongst themselves and help each other out.
Meenal, you were saying something?
No, no, sorry.
No. So what do you think, students? Any reactions?
Yeah, I think we will give it a try. Like we will try to mail the forms. And, yeah.
Okay. Okay, but need to do it as early as possible.
And while
Otherwise,
you'll wait for the replies, please continue your work. Do not, that is not your primary. Like, just continue as if they aren't there yet. Then whatever information they give can be added on. But don't stop working, hoping for, waiting for the reply.
yeah, yeah, that was the announcement that we wanted.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else, Girish, which we have missed out? No, no. That was the only thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any groups which is having any teams, faculty, please comment if there is any specific concern in any group, somebody is not responding or there are some issues, please let us know. Yeah. So, all right. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, students. See you all. All the best.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.